All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another one of my interviews here on Drip Talk with Blake DeSnake Roberts. Today, I have a very special guest with me today. He is a semi-retired pro wrestler. He was former 1/7 of Misfits in Action, a WCW faction. He has formerly wrestled for the companies WCW, TNA, NWA, OVW, GCW, and much, much more. He is no other than Lash LeRoux, also known as the Raging Cajun, Corporal Cajun. So let's get him on in here, and then we will start with the interview. Hello.
How in the world are you, Blake the Snake? Man, you got me, the one and only Lash LeRoux. Somebody had to be. I drew the short straw, brother. What's going on with you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, man?
Man, I am dripping. I'm here on Drip Talk, and I'm dripping. I'm ready to rock and roll, brother. Let's see what you got for me.
That's right. Thank you, and thank you for taking your time out to do this interview. It's a pleasure to have you on here.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Anytime people show an interest and that God love you for remembering the old Raging Cajun, I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you my first question. When did you start doing wrestling, and what made you want to do it?
Man, I grew up as a lot of kids did watching wrestling, and I was a child of the '80s, so I was right there in the midst of Hulkamania and the Ultimate Warrior and the Macho Man Randy Savage, and then down here in the South, very strong in this area was pre-WCW was just NWA, and you would watch Saturday night show on TBS, and then it became WCW, and that became a thing and took off. So in the South, you had Dusty Rhodes and the Four Horsemen and the Rock and Roll Express and the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors. You had these great factions down here in the South, and then up north you had WWF, Rock and Hulkamania, and that thing was taking off. And so I grew up a little Hulkamaniac like a lot of people from my generation did. But in the early 90s, I sort of fell away from wrestling. Wrestling was not as interesting to me, and I was just caught up in high school. You know, high school gets busy if you do sports and things like that, which I did. And I was working a lot back then. I was homeless my junior and senior of high school, so I just didn't have a lot of time for wrestling. And then I graduated about 95, which was close to when wrestling started having a resurgence. And WCW began to take off with Monday Nitro, and you had the NWO, and you had Goldberg, and you had Sting, and the Macho Man Randy Savage again, and Ric Flair, and all these guys I grew up watching were now a part of WCW. And I never thought it'd be a career for me. I never thought it'd be an opportunity for me. But I began watching the show again on Monday nights, and they'd show commercials for the WCW power plant in Atlanta. And dude, on a whim, I just said, you know what? I think I'm going to try out. And I went and did an open tryout. And kind of there's a lot of work that went from A to B, but the rest is sort of history.
Yeah, that's great. And the power plant was ran by Sergeant Buddy Lou Parker, I'm guessing, correct?
Yeah, he was the head trainer there. The guy that actually ran the power plant for WCW, the executive position, was the original assassin, Jody Hamilton, which was referee Nick Patrick's dad at the time. And just an old school wrestler, and he kind of ran herd over the whole thing. And Sarge did the actual training, and Sarge was just a bulldog, man. He was going to make sure you're ready physically. And then you had Jody Hamilton was tremendous for just coaching you up psychologically and making sure you had a good understanding of the wrestling business, and you could tell that story inside the ring.
Yeah, most definitely. What was the age that you were when you officially knew that you wanted to step in the ring and become a wrestler?
Man, I guess I was 18. If I was 18, man, because I remember signing with WCW. I was the youngest guy they had under contract at the time. And, man, I was a little young buck, you know, but I didn't know that it'd even be a possibility. It's not as if I grew up thinking one day I'm going to be a professional wrestler, because I thought things like that were not even possible at the time. Same way with my art career, which I do now with a lot of drawing and cartooning and caricature work. I never thought that was something that you could make a career out of. You know, where I come from, People don't necessarily always get to live their dreams like that. So I consider myself extremely fortunate.
Yeah, most definitely. Definitely that change from wrestling to doing art. That's different. So how did you change from wrestling into art? How did that happen?
So here's the thing, man, is Blake, it went hand in glove. And what I mean by that is this, they dovetailed into each other very, very nicely. I've always loved to draw, just like I was always into wrestling when I was a kid. And, you know, some kids like to draw, some kids don't like to draw. Most kids that draw will copy what they see in comic books. And I had a lot of friends that would do that. And I was never particularly drawn towards comic books. I thought the characters were cool, but I'm going, okay, you drew Batman. He's got a square head. He doesn't have a lot of details. What are you really impressing me with, buddy? But when I was young, there was this magazine called Mad Magazine. In Mad Magazine, for your young viewers that may not remember that, was a magazine that would spoof. It was humor, and it would spoof and make fun of and do parodies of movies and TV shows. So like when Dirty Dancing came out or Top Gun came out or whatever the big blockbuster was, Jurassic Park, man, you open up Mad Magazine and they're doing a comic book spoof on it. And for that to work, those characters they drew had to be recognizable as the celebrities. And that's where I first realized what a caricature was. And it blew my mind that someone could do a cartoon that looked just like a person. You're going, dude, you don't have to tell me that's Tom Cruise. That looks just like Tom Cruise. And that impressed me. And I always considered that almost magical in a way, you know. And when I began wrestling back in the late 90s, you were on the road 300 days out of the year. You're in a different town every night, in a different arena every night. You had to be there at noon for a show that didn't go live on TV until like 7 p.m. So if you didn't have interviews to do in the back and you didn't have pre-tapes or you didn't have other issues that you had to take care of, you had a lot of time on your hands. So I got bored and I began drawing the guys in the back on the dry erase boards. You know, I draw Macho Man and Hulk Hogan and all these guys, and the other wrestlers would keep, you know, encouraging me. They thought it was hilarious. And the editors and publishers of the wrestling magazines at the time saw that, and they thought, man, this would be really cool to have you do a comic strip or a single panel cartoon in each one of our issues. And so that was great for me because at that point I wasn't a professional artist. I was a wrestler that could sort of draw. So that was the
Yeah.
novelty of it. And what that allowed me to do, man, is all this leeway where I've got complete freedom. I can't screw this up because they're not going to get another wrestler that can sort of draw to fill my shoes. So I took every opportunity each and every month when I had a deadline to meet to try to get a little better and a little better with my drawing ability. And by the time I retired from wrestling, I had a few tools in the toolbox that I could transfer over into caricature art.
Yeah. What would be great is you wrestling and like doing like artwork in the ring. Like you be called like the artwork wrestler and just
So
do artwork in the ring.
yeah, so Blake, if you do a deep dive, and I'm sure it's probably on YouTube somewhere, you can see where towards the end of Saturday night's run there, the WCW Saturday Night syndicated show, we did exactly that. We had one particular show where I had a few segments throughout there where I would come out and I would draw on an easel and I'd make fun of the guys that were in the ring. In fact, Spring Stampede, I want to think it was 2000. You had Jimmy Hart wrestling Mancow, and Mancow was this DJ at the time that was sort of a shock jock radio guy, similar to Howard Stern, out of Chicago. And so they were doing like this celebrity match, and Jimmy was always very encouraging with my artwork and my abilities and my talents. He thought it was unique and thought it was great, and he had me draw a caricature of him and Mancow going at it. And I just did a quick sketch there at the show in black and white with a Sharpie on a sheet of paper. And that's what they used to make the T-shirts for that pay-per-view for that particular match. So, you know, WCW utilized it some. Same way with our MIA run when we did the Misfits in Action. The logo that was the Misfits in Action in the T-shirt design, I drew that from scratch and designed that.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Who is your favorite wrestler to watch nowadays in wrestling?
Oh, man, let's see. Nowadays in wrestling, who do I enjoy now? Man, I don't watch a lot of the product now simply because of the pacing of it. I prefer the more old school style wrestling because of that. But I do enjoy ever so often seeing Kenny Omega many times. A lot of his matches I've seen, I'm impressed by. I'm impressed by Will Ospreay. He does a lot of good stuff, man. But other than that, man, I really don't follow a whole lot of the product these days.
Yeah. Who were your general wrestling trainers in the business?
Definitely, Sarge, Buddy Lee Parker had a huge hand in molding me. At the time there, Pistol Pez Watley, he showed me a few things here and there. It was mostly Sarge and mostly learning on the job after I began starting getting booked for matches in WCW, because here I am, a young kid, man, younger than 20 years old, and I'm getting to be in the ring with guys like Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and guys like Buff Bagwell and guys like Brad Armstrong and Scott Armstrong. And I'm learning from these guys while I'm wrestling. Chavo Guerrero, all these Rey Mysterio, Billy Kidman, Disco Inferno. They all have sort of a hand in what you do, because what happens in wrestling, in my opinion, if you're going to be a great wrestler, a great worker, you need to be able to go in there and have chemistry with anybody they put you in a match with. And everybody has a different style. So typically, I think if you're a young guy in the wrestling business, you have a tendency to absorb some of those things that are done well by other people. So you may throw a punch like Scott Hall, or you may kick like Kurt Hennig, or you may be intense like Arn Anderson. And you want to pick up all those things as you go along, mold them and kind of slosh them around and make them your own. So it's unique to you, the way that you do it, but you're following kind of the same formula and guidelines.
Yeah. Was there anybody that inspired you family-wise in the wrestling business?
Not in the wrestling business, but I'm very blessed in the sense that I come from a family that we had a very difficult childhood growing up. I had a mom that quit school in the 8th grade and raised 5 kids by herself. I have an older brother and have a younger brother, and I'm the small one. I've got 2 younger sisters too. I'm the run of the family, and my brothers and my sisters, everybody, my mom, everybody in my family were so supportive. So they were some of my biggest fans. They didn't always make the shows. They weren't even big wrestling fans, but because I was involved and because it was something I was being successful at, it made a difference to them. So they were so incredibly loving to me and supportive because of that. And I couldn't be more happy or more appreciative and grateful for that foundation.
Yeah, most definitely. Who has been the stiffest wrestler you've gone in the ring with so far in your career?
Oh, wow. Let's see. That's a good question. Uh, Absolute stiffest. Mm, 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 mm. I would probably, Steiner Brothers can be pretty snug. By stiff, though, I want to be completely clear when I say this. I think that you can work strong and be safe. The Steiners worked strong, but they were safe. They never hurt me. Never had to worry about being in a match with them where I was going to walk out of it feeling like I was beat up. But they're going to bring it when you go in the ring with them, and I don't have a problem with that. I sort of appreciate that. Probably the stiffest, the snuggest were them, and they were still tremendous wrestlers and great workers. But that's also why their work rate inside the ring looks so believable. Is they're going to make sure they lay it in safe places, and that's the art of it.
Yep. Did you ever get into the ring with Vader?
Vader, no. Now, Vader was pretty much retired by the time I got to the wrestling business.
Because, yeah, I heard that he was pretty stiff in the ring. He was kind of dangerous.
Yeah, there's certain guys that get a reputation for that, and I think unfortunately, especially bigger guys oftentimes will do that to try to make up for the fact that they may not have the most finesse in the world, but the beauty of it is to be able to get in there in the ring and dance around in such a way with your opponent that it looks so believable. Same with Goldberg. Goldberg gets a bad rap many times for not being a tremendous wrestler, but I will say this, for me personally, I'm sure someone like Bret Hart would take exception with this, but for me personally, I felt like Bill Goldberg had a pretty good handle on the things he could do well and was able to have good matches because of that were believable and the people got behind them.
Yeah, agreed. Were you ever in a school or amateur wrestling as a kid?
Oh, absolutely. I loved amateur wrestling. I actually won a state championship in amateur wrestling. I actually won a junior high state championship and a varsity state championship, and I also won a state championship in football. Went undefeated my junior year playing football, and I was always an athlete in high school. I was never the standout athlete. I wasn't the best player on the team. I wasn't the best athlete in the school. I was the guy that wouldn't give up. I was the guy that had all the heart, and that always served me really, really, really well because of that. But I loved amateur wrestling. And the funny thing about that, especially when I started in professional wrestling, I was a little bit on the smaller side compared to a lot of the other wrestlers. And oftentimes, also, I did not have the greatest physique of all the wrestlers. I wasn't one of the body guys. And so Sarge in the power plant would have a lot of fun using me if we had someone that was training that was not respecting the business as they should respect the business, or treating it like it's a joke, or treating it like it's all fake. Then he'd put me in the ring with them, and they would look at me and think that, okay, this guy's not going to do anything. I'd tie him up in a pretzel and I'd shoot on them, and they couldn't do anything about it because I had a great amateur wrestling skills.
Yeah. Did you do any type of like drama or any type of that stuff in school?
No, no, not at all. Not at all. I always was fascinated by, believe it or not, public speaking, but mostly from a political standpoint. I was heavy into politics as far as not so much getting emotional about today's issues, but I love the history of politics. And I love world history and U.S. history. And I loved listening to old speeches from great statesmen and great orators. And I would use that to my advantage. So I loved opportunities to get in front of a class and just speak. And I do a lot of public speaking now because of it. I enjoy that a lot. I think a good turn of phrase can change people's mind about certain issues and can evoke emotions in a way that's almost magical.
Yeah. What do you consider to be a weakness and then a strength in wrestling of yours?
Of mine personally, I think my strength is my ability to have a good match with anybody, whether it's a physical match, a lot of power moves. I can do those and match you power for power. If it's high flying, I can match you move for move. I was one of the original sort of American guys doing that luchador style in WCW as a cruiserweight, which I take pride in. Or if it's technical wrestling like a Dean Malenko, then I can get in there and go with the best of them because I have that amateur wrestling background. Also, I think I was very giving in the ring. If you ask me what I thought my greatest weakness was, I was not intense enough, I don't think. When it comes time for you to turn it on and it's your moment to shine, you need to really look intense and look powerful and look like you're really bringing it against your opponent. And oftentimes I was so giving in the ring and so concerned with making the other guy look good that it made me probably look weaker at certain moments in a match when it was my turn to really look strong and shine.
Yeah. Is it hard traveling from show to show, and what was the worst thing about traveling?
The worst thing about traveling is just having this constant overhanging anxiety that you forgot something. That's the worst thing for me personally. I was that
Yeah.
guy's like, I'm gonna pack everything, and I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But you're constantly just strained and you're anxious that, man, did I forget something, or am I going to need this, or am I going to need that? But outside of that, I enjoy traveling. It never really bothered me too much when I was wrestling. In fact, I considered it personally part of the excitement of the business. And that has served me well as I was transitioned over to caricature now, because my main staple of my income now is I do private events. And I'll go and draw caricatures for people at their weddings and at corporate luncheons and at conventions and conferences and college campuses. And it often requires me to travel a good deal. And I get gigs that other artists don't get simply because I'm willing to travel. I just got a call yesterday, as a matter of fact. I've got a client that wants me to fly out to New Mexico in May just to draw at an award ceremony for like 3 hours and then fly right back home. So it's
Oh,
almost
jeez.
as if it's almost like my travel schedule hasn't changed much since wrestling.
Yeah. Who was your first opponent in front of a crowd, and how did you feel going into that first match?
Perry Saturn, and I was extremely anxious and nervous and everything you can imagine. My first match was really on TV. It was a TV taping for our Saturday night syndicated show for WCW Worldwide against Perry Saturn, and it only lasted about 4 minutes. And I can remember something that I had never considered was the fact that I'm about to have to walk to the ring without a shirt on. And I was so embarrassed, and it felt weird. I'm going, dude, I feel like I need to cover up. And you're walking out the curtain like this because you're just not used to all these eyes being on you, and it's nerve wracking. And then you try to remember everything you need to do in the match, and you just want to do a good job and not screw anything up and not miss anything. That was a pressure cooker. But as you get the reps under your belt, it's like a lot of things in life, man. They say practice makes perfect. It's absolutely true that the more reps you get at anything, the better off you're going to be. Blake, I bet you're far better at podcasting now than you were your very first show. You probably feel like you're kind of tentative that first show. You don't really know what you're doing. You don't know what to expect. It makes you nervous because you don't want to mess anything up. But then as you get a couple of shows under your belt and you progress and you get better, you go, hey, I've gotten pretty comfortable with this and I think I'm okay at it. Then your confidence grows. And then that's where you have the opportunity to shine and go above and beyond and really be successful at something.
Yeah. How did the crowd react when they seen you for the first time in the ring with Perry Saturn?
They didn't. And look, I'm not under any kind of illusions that I was some big superstar, and just because I'm a WCW wrestler, that meant something. At that time, I don't even think I was quite under contract yet. They were just usually using me on a nightly basis, and the fans didn't know who I was, and I was meant to be nothing but enhancement talent. So I was just another warm body to go out there and have a match. What I did take pride in was this, and I think this is a great lesson for young wrestlers that are coming up, is you have these moments and you learn to recognize them when they're happening. Things like I'm walking through that curtain and going to the ring. Well, that's your time. Perry's not out there. Perry Saturn's not going to be out there in the aisleway stopping you from doing whatever your gimmick is or trying to connect with the fans. Or when you get into the ring and you're wrestling somebody, the way you sell or the way that you transition from one move to the next or what you do in the in-between time to connect with the fans, that all makes a difference in how the fans perceive you. And you can get over without really winning matches. You can become popular and become a fan favorite without ever pinning anybody. And I think that we lose that sometimes because our ego tells us that if I'm not shining in this match or if I'm not winning, then how am I supposed to get popular and get over?
Yeah. If you could go back in time and wrestle anyone that has passed away, who would that be?
Brad Armstrong. I think Brad Armstrong, if you asked every wrestler that you ever encountered who was the best pure wrestler you ever saw in your life, 98.7% of those wrestlers are going to say Brad Armstrong. Just a tremendous technician, a great worker, smooth as silk in the ring, just phenomenal top to bottom. And I say that also because I had the opportunity to be in the ring with Eddie more than I was Brad. So Eddie Guerrero is another one that falls in that category, but I was fortunate enough to wrestle Eddie. Brad and I were extremely close, and we traveled together and spent a lot of time together. He took me under his wing, and he really kind of broke me into WCW. And I always appreciated that and have a great love and affinity for him and his entire family because of that. But I never had the opportunity to wrestle him, and I wish that I had.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah.
Who is or was your top dream opponent that you could possibly still get into the ring with?
That I could still get into the ring with now. I wouldn't mind having a match with Chris Jericho. I'd love to have a match with Chris Jericho. I think our styles would complement each other pretty well, and I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, I think that would be a great match. Yeah. And I would like to see you in AEW, so that would be great to have you two wrestle in AEW.
Hey, there's a lot of talent in AEW, top to bottom, man, and I love that too. I had the opportunity last fall, to go to an AEW show and be backstage and see some guys that I hadn't seen in 25 years, and meet some of the younger guys that I'd never had the opportunity to meet before, and tell them how much I appreciated their working ability. And being backstage at AEW felt a lot like being backstage at WCW. It brought a lot of the old feels back, man, and loved it. I like the
Yeah.
locker room a lot.
Yeah, they bring in a lot of the older wrestlers from back in the day, so it's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that mix, Blake. I think that what you want when you have a good, solid wrestling company is you got to have your top guys. Obviously, they're going to be your draws, and whoever your superstars are, they need to be at the top of the heat, and they need to bring people in and get them engaged and get them interested and sell tickets. But right underneath that, you have the mid card guys, and those mid card guys are superstars, and some are on their way up and some are on their way down. But you want to have a good, healthy mix there, because then you want those younger guys that are coming in to be able to learn from guys that have been there before. And if you miss a generation of that, what winds up happening is you have young, super young guys trying to learn from much older guys that may be putting the matches together in the back, but they can't physically show them how it's done in the ring. If you get some guys like Chris Jericho is a good example of that. Chris can still go in the ring. So he can wrestle a young guy in AEW and not just tell them what is a good idea as far as how to do stuff in a match, but he can actually show it to them by going out there and having that type of match with them. Those types of people in your locker room are extremely important, because when you are young in the wrestling business, man, it's difficult enough to navigate those waters without having to try to figure things out as you go.
Yeah, agreed. Yep. Who is someone you would like to wrestle that you have already wrestled before?
Rey Mysterio. I've wrestled Rey Mysterio, I don't know how many times in WCW, and I'd love to have another match with Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, that would have been great. Did you, after your WCW career, did you ever get asked to wrestle for like WWE, WWF, or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I signed with WWE. I was one of the first 22 guys from WCW to sign with WWE. I signed a 3-year contract with the WWE. Um, I was asked to go to Cincinnati and help train guys in HWA and OVW until they're ready to bring me out on TV. And I was supposed to be there for 4 weeks, and that 4 weeks turned into 9 months. And so I said, okay, I guess you really don't have plans for me, and this is not what I signed up for. So I took a buyout on my contract and came home.
Hmm. Who would you list as your top 3 favorite opponents from your career?
Uh, Disco Inferno, believe it or not, he was fun to wrestle and be in the ring with. Uh, Certainly Rey Mysterio Jr. and Billy Kidman, and I'll throw a fourth one in there as a bonus pick, Chavo Guerrero.
Oh yeah, who was also a member of MIA. So yeah.
That's right. And when we split off in MIA, we actually had a little bit of a feud together, Chavo and I did.
Mm. Like a personal feud, or would you mind talking about it on here?
No. It's just as things split up, storyline wise on television, you want to give people a reason to have a little bit of flack and have an excuse for splitting a faction that once was a team. And usually you have a couple of people from that team that will sort of pair off and they'll have some good matches against one another. Chavo and I always had good matches against each other. We were sized well for each other. We complemented each other well, and we had good chemistry in the ring. So it was a natural that of the people inside the faction, Chavo and I would be the two that would be feuding with each other and have a series of matches.
Ah, okay, yeah. Do you usually get along and become friends with most of your opponents?
Absolutely. 99.9% of them. Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
very rare for me to walk out of a match or to even be in a locker room for that matter and not get along with everybody. Matter of fact, I cannot think of a single instance where I absolutely didn't get along with anyone. I've had a couple of matches where something may go wrong in the ring, and because of that, you may have a heated confrontation in the moment. You may lose your cool a little bit, but you're usually just fine as soon as you get in the back.
Yeah, because mistakes happen. So that one little mistake.
Sure, that's exactly right, man. Somebody could take something the wrong way. Someone could be a little too sensitive. I'll give you an example of that. If you're curious about specific instances, we had a house show one time. It was a tag match. It was me. Actually, it was I think it was a 6-man match because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was myself, Hugh Morris, Chavo Guerrero. We're doing the MIA gimmick, and we're wrestling against Sean O'Hare, Mark Jindrak, and Chuck Palumbo. And Sean O'Hare was still pretty young in the wrestling business. Big old dude, man. And he had some legitimate MMA style, background and that sort of thing. And he was a tough guy and he was a big guy. But, you give a reason as you're wrestling for your opponent to kind of come through the ropes and want to come at you so the referee can push him back and you can take your opponent into the turnbuckle, tag your partner, come in. And so to give him a reason to be hot at me and to sell coming into the ring, I spit at him. But I didn't even really spit at him. I went like that just to pantomime it for the fans. For whatever reason, he took it personal. He thought, man, this dude's really trying to spit on me in the middle of the match, and I'm not having it. And he felt disrespected, and he came in and he pie-faced me. And because he pie-faced me, I immediately got hot, and I'm ready to fight him. And I told him, I'm like, look, dude, I'm probably not going to win this fight, but I'm not going to back down either, right? And so you better pack your lunch. You're going to at least know you were in a fight. I'm pretty scrappy when I got to be. I'll bite your knee off or something. And but by the time we got in the back, man, cooler heads prevail. You're all brothers at the end of the day. And look, you're on the road way too much. You're doing way too much business with each other, and you have to trust one another way too much in the ring for you to have those kind of petty differences.
Yeah. If you could make a Survivor Series match, including you, with 4 wrestlers that are still alive from any era, who would you choose as partners?
Oh, man, let's see. 4 wrestlers that are still alive from any era. Wow. All right. I'm going to say myself, I need 4 more wrestlers. So I'm going to throw some fun ones in the mix. I'm going to throw Chris Jericho in the mix. I'm going to throw Chavo Guerrero in the mix. I'm going to throw Dustin Rhodes in the mix. And I need one more. Rey Mysterio, I'm going to throw him in the mix as well.
That would be great, yeah.
Yeah, we'll take on anybody. So there's the challenge right there. Open challenge. I'm not even gonna run it by them. I'm just challenging them right now, straight up.
Yeah, we don't need their approval. We'll just
don't need their approval.
Take it
man.
on from here.
It's gonna happen. I'm booking it, whether they like it or not. No.
Yep. We'll have it happen on AEW.
There you go. I'm here for it.
Would you rather be in a street fight or a death match?
Street fight. 100%. And I mean, I would rather be in an actual real life street match than a death match. I'm not a fan of death matches at all. I'm just not.
Yeah.
There are certain times in the wrestling business that you need certain things for dramatic effect and to take the feud to the next level. But at the same time, I think those types of matches are totally overused. And oftentimes, if you need that many props in a match, you probably need to go back and revisit what you're doing in an actual match, because you can bring the fans along and get them engaged and get them excited without having to do all that needless stuff.
Yeah. Would you rather be in a blindfolded match, handcuffed to your opponent, or a dog collar?
Dog collar. I think you do a lot more with the dog collar match. That's a lot more intriguing. Blindfold matches are difficult, and they're difficult because one or two things are going to happen. Either you have to really blindfold one another, and then you kind of can't see what you're doing, and you handcuff, especially if you're handcuffed to a person, you don't have very much space to really work within. Seriously, you don't. And so you're very limited in what you can do. The only other option then is for you to use a blindfold that's not really a blindfold, that you can actually see through. And if you use that, then you're getting into the realm of you wind up overacting and pretending you're blind when you're really not. And I think that comes across as extremely hokey if you do one little small thing in the match that you shouldn't have been able to do if you were really blindfolded.
Yeah, you have a point. Yep. I mean, also in a blindfolded, you could also cheat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, and those are things that you have to do. You know, the best blindfold match I've ever seen done was it Roddy Piper that had the blindfold match, and he would point and get the fans to cheer when he's pointing where his opponent was, and then he would go after him. I think that's genius. Now that sort of thing, but then again, you can only do that so much in a match, and then you have to get to the actual wrestling. And what are you going to do? You know, so you're very limited. It may have been Jake the Snake Roberts that did that. I'm trying to remember, but I think that's what it was. I mean, that sort of psychology is genius, but I also don't think that the average wrestling fan today has the patience for those types of matches, because those types of matches require a lot of good ring psychology to tell the story of what you're doing and why you're doing it, which is more of a slow build than going out and doing, I don't know, 16 Canadian destroyers and then letting the guy kick out.
Yeah. Is there any piece of merch that you have or had that has sold out pretty quickly?
You know what? I just did a series of trading cards for a company back in the fall. And as soon as I signed the trading cards, and this surprised me because it's been, 20 years since I've been relevant in professional wrestling. And I signed these trading cards and they ran a limited edition and they sold out immediately, like within a week. So that surprised me. I also loved doing the MIA t-shirts. I took extreme pride in that because I would go and check the merch table at the big events and see how they're selling, and was always excited that they were selling well because I did the design. So I took a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. Is there any time a fan has seen you in public and got like super surprised and are excited? And for like example, like during your caricature work out like in public.
I'm sorry, ask me that question one more time. I'm not sure I quite caught it.
Is there any time a fan has seen you in public and got super surprised and or excited?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm shocked that it happens as often as it does still. And most of the time, if I do these large events and I'm drawing caricatures, there'll be one or two people that recognizes me always. And the funny thing about fame, for lack of a better way of putting it, or any kind of level of celebrity, is it only takes one person to recognize you, and then they start whispering it to everybody else, and now everybody wants to pretend like they knew who you were the entire time anyway. And that's fun, and it gives you something else to talk about and to play with when you're at these events, and it gets everyone excited. And so it's interesting to people and fun for people, I think, if they sit down, for instance, and they're getting a caricature drawn, and it's not just some artist. You're going, oh, you used to wrestle, and they'll ask you questions about that, and that's always fun. One of the strangest encounters I ever had that, looking back, I think is absolutely hilarious, that probably warrants telling the story so that your listeners can enjoy this, is I remember coming out of a wrestling show once, and I looked over, and behind the building there, there would be security barriers, and the fans are standing back there, and they're hoping they see some of the wrestlers as they're leaving. And I'm walking out, and there's a girl that's probably 14, 15 years old that's just losing her mind at seeing me. She's got tears coming down her face, everything else. And in fact, she's acting so over the top that it kind of it pulled my heart a little bit. So I went over there and wanted to see what I could do for her, sign an autograph or whatever. And I walked over and I went, hey, can I sign something for you? You want an autograph? And she goes, you don't understand. You're my grandmother's favorite wrestler. So you get those kind of things. Oh, so I'm not your favorite wrestler. I'm your grandmother's favorite wrestler. I get it.
So she's crying for her grandma, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If only my grandmother was here right now, she'd be so excited.
Yeah. Who is your favorite horror character and favorite horror movie, if you have one?
Oh, man, let's see. Growing up, I was way more into horror movies than I am now. I don't get into horror movies too much anymore, but growing up, probably Freddy Krueger, I thought he was kind of a cool, iconic horror heel, if you will. And my favorite movies were probably those Nightmare on Elm Street movies. My favorite horror character, though, has probably got to be Elvira. And your generation is going to be too young to appreciate her. But Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, used to host these shows on the weekends. So if you stayed up late at night, and you were late enough, then there she was laid out on the sofa telling you that she's about to show you a show, and she was kind of this vampiric looking female host. She was fun. It was very funny back then. Everything was campy and done in a joking way.
Yeah, Elvira. I think she did some stuff for WCW a little bit too. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. She was great in real life too, and she's just playing a character, man. So once you get in the wrestling business, you can appreciate people that develop a gimmick like that and just play it to the hilt and make a lot of money off of it. Good for her.
Yeah, she would have been good as like a Vampiro's valet or something like that.
There you go. That's right. That's right.
What is generally your favorite music to listen to in your spare time as you're like just getting ready to do like caricature or something in your day?
So here, this is a strange question for me, and the reason why it's a strange question for me, Blake, is because I'm all over the place with my musical tastes, and it has less to do with the genre than it does whether or not the music itself is good. And the other thing I find is I go through different vibes, for lack of a better way of putting it. So I'll be vibing hard on a certain genre. There'll be times when I live out in the woods, man, and up on the mountain here in Alabama. So there's times when I'm just listening to a lot of country music. But then there's times when I'll get on kicks and I'm listening to nothing but heavy metal all the time. And I'll listen to Metallica for a while. And then I'll remember how much I enjoyed Eminem in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I'll go back and listen to hip hop and Eminem, some Dr. Dre. And then there's some weird times when there's some old obscure artists like a Warren Zevon that has some cool music like Werewolves of London. And I'll go back and listen to this stuff that nobody's ever heard of before. And I love throwing those little gems out there. Same way with, for instance, my ring music when I first started in WCW. Jimmy Hart did it based on this artist that used to do a mixture of in the 70s of funk sound along with some swampy music and some Zydeco music, which is very unique to Louisiana and to the Cajun culture. And they called it swamp pop. And man, a guy by the name of Tony Joe White that hardly anybody's ever heard of. The biggest hit he ever had was Elvis Presley did a cover of one of his songs, Polk Salad Annie. And so, I can get way out there and obscure and in the weeds, and I can like some mainstream stuff. I almost was about to say the only thing I really don't listen to is pop, but I guess that's not really true either, because I will actually not listen to pop when it's current, when it's hot, and then suddenly a couple of years after something fades, I'll go back and I'll go, this Lady Gaga chick is pretty talented. So it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in.
Yeah. If a movie was made about your career, who would you want to play you?
Oh, wow. Who do I want? I'm going to say Chris Pine. How about that? Yeah. I think he could pull it off.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he could do it.
If you got to choose the stipulation.
Although I will say this, I don't know, are you allowed to have a movie made out of you now if you're a wrestler and not have the guy from the Iron Claw play you? I think he's playing all the wrestlers now.
Zac Efron.
Zac Efron. Yeah, there you go. That's his name.
Yeah. I could see him working that out too. Maybe a couple like hair extensions for the long hair. But I could see it working.
He could do that, or we could get Hugh Jackman to come back with the Wolverine sideburns, so he'd have my double L's and just have him play me, maybe. I don't know.
Or Mickey Rourke.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm not quite that old looking yet. But
well, with the good detailed makeups that they have now,
that's true. Prosthetics, you can do
make
almost
him look
anything.
younger.
That's right. You can do
Yeah.
almost anything with prosthetics.
If you got to choose the stipulation for your match, what stipulation would you choose?
Loser leaves town. I'm just saying that off the top of my head because I think it's so old school and awesome, right? It's like loser leaves town. Now you feel like you really got something on the line. I was never a big guy of the hair versus hair matches because I was like, okay, so you've shaved his head, he'll just grow it back. What I was a big fan of, and I don't know if your generation can appreciate this, man, but there would be a lot of loser leave town matches when I was a kid, and the guy would come back with a mask on. Like Brad Armstrong, who was so awesome, man, and that whole family is such awesome wrestlers. When I was a kid, the territory here in Alabama was Continental Championship Wrestling. And his dad, Bullet Bob Armstrong, became Bullet because he was Bob Armstrong, lost a loser leave town match, and he comes back with a mask on as the Bullet and swears he's not Bob Armstrong. And the awesome thing about that is the only thing that changed was he put on a mask. He still has the same amount of body hair, which was a lot. He still has the same singlet and the same boots. He's just put a mask on. He's got the same voice. It's like Dusty Rhodes being the Midnight Rider. Like nobody was fooled by that. But because he's a babyface and you're rooting for the good guy, you're going, no, I'm on Dusty's side.
Yeah, or like if you know who Elias is, and then he play Elias.
Yes. Yeah.
They basically like released him to the dead, and then he came back as Ezekiel, and it was like
right.
you could kind of obviously tell that they looked apart. He just cut his hair and
Yeah,
changed
at
his
that point
attire.
at that point you're Clark Kent taking off the glasses and becoming Superman and wondering why everybody doesn't recognize you when all you did was put on eyeglasses.
Yeah. What has been the funniest thing a fan has said to you before?
Oh, a funniest thing that a fan had. All right, how about this? This is a pretty good one. I was going into a hotel late at night, and I'd just been on TV long enough for fans to start recognizing me. And keep in mind, like I said, man, you're talking late teens, early 20s that I'm already on TV. So that ego, you got to put it in check because you're going to get a big head really fast. And especially in the late 90s, because the fans would find out where we were staying. And if you showed up at the hotel, there's 200 people waiting in the lobby. And so I walk in, and it's late at night, and I've got my sunglasses on because, I'm a superstar and everything. And I'm pulling my bag, and I'm getting ready to sign in and check into the hotel. And there's this group of girls that had been in the hotel bar, and they come out. And, they're just partying up and having fun, and they stop and they see me. And they start losing their mind, and they go, "Oh my gosh, you know who that is, don't you?" And they're talking to me. I'm going, "Easy, easy. Let me finish checking in. I'll sign whatever you want me to sign." I'm acting like I'm a big superstar. And there's one girl in the back of the group that I can tell is not sold. She has no idea who I am. She just doesn't get the so she's trying to whisper to her friend. She's going, "I don't know who that is. I don't." And her friends get mad about it. Her friends going, "You don't recognize him?" I don't know who that is. You don't know who this is that we're talking to, that we're getting to meet right now. She keeps getting louder and louder. She goes, "No, I don't know who that is. You don't recognize him. No, you don't. You've never seen him on TV before. No, I don't know who that is." And they go, "It's that guy from that 70s show." And as soon as they said that, I realized they didn't have a clue who I was. Yeah.
Did you find out what 70 shows they were talking about?
Yeah, they were talking about there actually used to be a TV show called That 70s Show. And there was a character on there. I think his name was Kelso or something. And he wore glasses all the time, sunglasses, and he had red curly hair like I had. So they thought I was that guy from that show.
Ah.
Yeah.
I mean, anyways, you are still meeting a famous person.
Right. Hey, the only thing you can do in that case, in that situation, is whoever they mistake you for, you just go ahead and sign that person's name. It's like I'll travel a lot now, and I'll go through airports, and I'll have a cap on sometimes, and I'll have my hair pulled up under my cap so it looks like my hair is short. And I've had a few times gone through the airport and had someone go, "Oh, you look like that wrestler." And you're going, "Yeah, well, I kind of am that wrestler." And, it's just, "Oh, you're John Cena?" And I go, no, that's not who I am. Sorry. I thought you were talking about a different wrestler who I actually am.
What has been a best fan compliment you have received, either like a show, convention, or out open?
You know what? I'm going to go with the thing that's foremost on my mind. And I would say what's foremost on my mind is the whole entire crowd of fans when I did GCW last fall. For me to come out there and them immediately connect with me, and from the beginning of that match, them go, "You still got it." I mean, what a great compliment that is when you feel like an old man and you feel like time has kind of passed you by a little bit, and you've been out of the ring for 15 years and you go back in and have your first match in that long, and for the fans to still have a gratitude and appreciation for that picture that you're painting on the canvas there in a match, and them see that you're not holding back and you're not having some old man match, you're actually having a good quality match. That was awesome, and what a great experience that was, man. And I'm forever grateful to the opportunity I got from GCW and to also the reaction from the fans.
Yeah. And talking about GCW, since you had that long break from like 15 to 20 years, what made you decide to go back to wrestle? Out of every wrestler out there, you decided to wrestle Joey Janela. What made you decide to go back to specifically GCW and wrestle Joey Janela?
It just kind of fell into place. And what I mean by that is this: the genesis of that entire experience was about last May. I did Top Guy Weekend in, I think it was either May or July. I did Top Guy Weekend in Huntsville, Alabama, because I do a podcast for adfreeshows.com. And I had not done anything wrestling related in however long it had been, and I didn't even do autograph signings. I don't do conventions. I don't do appearances because I'm one of those kind of guys that was afraid that if I kind of stuck my toe in the water, so to speak, then I'm either going to be all in or I'm not going to be in at all. And Conrad had talked me into coming and doing that Top Guy Weekend. He goes, "Look, you don't have to do anything wrestling related. Just come in and draw caricatures for the fans." I thought, okay, I can do that. And so I come and I draw caricatures for the fans, and I'm just kind of minding my own business. And they're having a show that actual weekend for all the subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber of adfreeshows.com, those are some of the perks that you get, man, because they'll have those weekends available for you. And they had guys like Kevin Sullivan and Road Dogg and Jeff Jarrett and Eric Bischoff and David Crockett, and they were there putting together matches and allowing the fans to be involved in the matches they were putting together and in the finishes. So they put on a wrestling show for the fans that were there. And at the end of the day, at the end of the show, we were getting ready to leave, and I packed up all my drawing supplies. And I looked over my shoulder and I go, "There's an empty ring." And I haven't been in the ring since the last time I rolled out of the ring and retired. I have not even stepped into a ring. I said, I've got to see what it feels like and remind myself what it feels like. And Conrad asked me, he goes, "You really hadn't been in the ring?" I go, "No." He goes, "You mind if we film it?" I said, "Go ahead." So I just got in, took a back bump. I go, "You know what? That feels pretty good." Stepped in the turnbuckle, did a front bump. I went, that's not bad at all. Threw a guy into the ropes. He came off. I threw a drop kick, and the timing was there. The height was there. Everything was perfect. And I went, man, that's like riding a bike. And GCW saw that footage. They gave me a call. They said, "What do you think about doing a comeback match and having a match with us and for us?" And I said, "You know what? I might just do that. That sounds interesting." And immediately the opponent that stepped to the plate and wanted to wrestle me was Joey Janela. So it just fell into place within the course of just a couple of days, man. And what a great experience. And they were very good to me. The locker room, everybody there, they treated me wonderfully. So it was a wonderful experience, man. It's a great thing. And I wanted to just see what I could still do, see if there was any opportunities left in wrestling. Went to AEW shows that same weekend, talked with those guys a little bit. And my thoughts being that if I was able to impress enough folks that the doors opened up again, great. If I didn't, man, that's my swan song. I'll come back home. I'll put those tights in the shadow box and I'll call it a day. So I'm good either way.
Yeah. Do you have any other plans of wrestling possibly in the future?
Not off the top of my head, I get a lot of I've gotten a lot of calls from promoters since then, and I've gotten a few opportunities. And I tell everybody the exact same thing. Dude, Blake, as I get older, I don't play games. I don't try to negotiate for the most money I can possibly get. I played this whole game with my cards face up. I show people completely transparent, see where I'm at. And where I'm at is this. I've built up a caricature business that does very well for me. When I do these events I'm telling you about, man, they pay very well. They're guaranteed. I can count on it. I make a lot of money doing it, and I'm not putting my body on the line in the process. Now, so what I tell promoters is this is what I get paid to draw caricatures at an event. If you can beat that, and if you're willing to pay me at least that much or more, I'll come and wrestle, man. I'd love to do it. I love wrestling, and I'm unselfish with it. I like teaching the young guys coming up anything that I've got that I might be able to offer to them that they consider wisdom or knowledge. I love passing that stuff on. I like the environment. I love being around the fans. So I love being a part of the wrestling community. But if it can't pay as well or better than what I'm making drawing, just from a business perspective, it doesn't make good sense for me at 47 years old to be getting in the ring and taking a chance on injury unless I can at least make it as lucrative as my caricature business is.
Yeah, I definitely see that. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So the door is always wide open to any promoters that are ever interested. And just that's my starting point. You know, if you're going to pay me at least that, I'm definitely interested. I'm intrigued, and we can make it happen. But otherwise, because here's what it comes down to is it's not just dollars and cents either. It's for me to take a wrestling booking, say on a Saturday night and have a match, then I'm giving up an opportunity to be working somewhere else, drawing caricatures that same night. And that's the reason why it has to be
Yep.
at least compensate me equally, if not better.
Yep. And you're taking your time out of your own life that you could be doing something else like you just mentioned. And, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and the flip side of that coin is this. If I need to stroke my ego, or if I need to be reminded that I'm a wrestler, or if I need to feel like I'm somebody again in the wrestling world, look, YouTube still exists. I can go back and watch those old matches and I can say, yep, it's legit. I can do it. You know, there's the reminder that you're the wrestler. So that's all I need.
yeah. Which wrestler has given you the best advice and or a compliment?
The best advice overall would have been Jody Hamilton when I first started in the wrestling business, because he was the one before I ever signed a contract at all. Said, if you're going to wrestle as Lash LeRoux, if I were you, man, I would just legally add the name Lash to my name. Don't worry about copyrights. Don't worry about trademarks. Just go into. So I did that when I was like 18 years old. So my name has been Lash LeRoux since then, and nobody could take that away from me. So I never had to worry about WWE or WCW or anybody else having the rights to that name and me not being able to use it. So I've been Lash LeRoux since I was 18, you know, so now we're talking about for 30 years plus. And that was great advice because that has protected me not just in the wrestling business, but now that's a brand that I can use in my caricature world. And probably the best compliment I got is, again, I'll utilize what happened most recently, having that GCW match. I came back through the curtain, and all the guys in the back and in the locker room were coming up to me and going, man, you've been lying to us. And I go, what are you talking about? Dude, you've been wrestling under a mask in Japan for the last 10 years or something, because there's no way that you've taken off 15 years to come back and had a 15-minute match that was that great, and you not been practicing or not been working at it. And so I took that as a huge compliment.
Yeah, definitely. Do you prefer and like being a heel or babyface more in wrestling?
I really don't have a preference. I don't. I take more pride in the challenge of whatever the booker, the agent, or the promoter thinks is going to best suit our needs for that particular match or that particular show. Then give me the challenge of telling me what role you need me to play, and then let me figure out how to parse it against whatever opponent it is I'm going to be in the ring against. I love that. I think the best wrestlers and the best workers were the ones that could tiptoe back and forth as needed. Nobody did that better than Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero could make fans cheer him or make fans absolutely hate him within the span of just a couple of minutes. And that was amazing.
Yeah. And to bring back to the past question we did, so you said you got the name Lash LeRoux. How did your
LeRoux.
name
LeRoux is French.
LeRoux? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
So how did you get changed from that to changing to Corporal Cahoon?
Corporal Cajun. So the Corporal Cajun thing was because, it was the Raging Cajun Lash LeRoux. LeRoux is a Cajun name. And so I had the whole Cajun character that I played off of while I was doing that. And then when they decided to put us in the Misfits in Action, and that was a Vince Russo idea, Vince Russo and Ed Ferreira. And they came to me and Chavo and Hugh and all those guys. They wanted to do something that gave us a rank to go along with our gimmick. So I was already Cajun, and I was the Raging Cajun. So it was easy for them to just say, we're going to call you Corporal Cajun as a part of this military group. Same way they took Chavo Guerrero and they called him Lieutenant Loco.
Okay, yeah. Was there any times in your career you witnessed like a crowd coming out of the crowd and trying to attack? Have you ever witnessed any of that?
I was actually involved in a small incident where Chavo and I, again, to mention him, were wrestling as a tag team together and we were going to the ring. And kind of the rule of thumb in wrestling is this, that if you have a perceived threat, you certainly can defend yourself. And the fans have no right to touch the wrestlers at all. Now, if you're walking into the ring and they start slapping your shoulder because they want to, just have an opportunity to have a little brush with you and touch you and make contact, I get all that. High-fiving people, we understand all that. But the fans never have a good excuse for grabbing you or trying to do something aggressive with you. And we were walking to the ring that particular night, and a fan reached out and grabbed Chavo by his head. Chavo used to wear this bandana on his head when he was doing that gimmick. And the fan reached over and grabbed him and was pulling him. And I just looked and saw that Chavo was getting pulled towards the crowd by his head. So I just turned around and popped him, dotted his eye, and pow, knocked the guy out. And we went in, had the match, didn't think anything of it after we left the ring. And the next week I got a call from WCW that I needed to come in and see the legal department because they were trying to sue WCW over it. Fans said that I had attacked them. So they asked for my events of the story, and I gave them the exact same story I just gave you. And they said, yes, that's the way we see it too. And they replayed the video. Thankfully, it was on TV. So they replayed the video, and it showed Chavo getting pulled in. The fans' argument was he was trying to grab the bandana off of Chavo's head because he just wanted it as a souvenir. But, of course, I don't know that at the time. So I'm defending and taking up for Chavo. And they didn't have a problem with that at all, and it all got dropped. But, you had that kind of stuff happen from time to time. And we had it happen a few times in WCW back then, man. Things were so hot with the NWO and those guys. And I saw 2 or 3 instances of fans getting in the ring.
Yeah. If you could wrestle for any wrestling company right now, what company would you choose to wrestle for?
I would love to be a part of AEW and be in that mix, or WWE. But what I could see myself doing is not just be a good influence on the guys in the locker room in the back and bring a little wisdom and a little maturity back there and hopefully be able to share some of my knowledge throughout the years and some of that wisdom and insight, just how to carry yourself and how to handle the wrestling business. But also, I think where I could really be utilized by a wrestling company that makes me unique and different from any other wrestler is now we place so much emphasis, as we should, on community involvement and reaching out to communities and helping people out and being a part of that in those groups and being a positive influence and a positive force. And because of that, you see a lot of wrestlers doing things like Make-A-Wish Foundation, which I did in WCW, or going to St. Jude's Hospital, and I did those things as well. But when a wrestler goes and makes that connection with some kids or with some kind of group, disadvantaged group, the best they can do is just sign a few autographs and say hi. If you sent me out there, not only could I sign a few autographs and say hi, I could draw caricatures of them. And I could draw caricatures of the kids and put it on AEW paper or put it on WWE pre-printed paper. So it's all branded and it gives the fans a souvenir and something unique to hold on to forever. So they not just have a caricature, but they have a caricature by a professional wrestler. And they don't just have an autograph, they have an autograph that's connected to something that I drew for them that's an original piece of artwork. I think that has value to it. And we need more ambassadors for the sport, people that can go out and carry themselves well so that it offsets the people that maybe don't always do that.
Yeah, that would actually be really great, being like somewhat like of an ambassador, and you doing like Titus O'Neil, how he goes around, you
Yes.
doing something like that and
Yeah.
doing like caricature for the people. That would be, yeah.
Yeah, you think of like WrestleMania weekends where they have the WWE access and things like that. You could set up a booth, man, and I could do caricatures all day long. I do a lot of conventions now where I get paid a good bit of money to come and sit into their booths and try to draw people in for whatever product they're selling. And I draw on an iPad when I do that, and you can see it on a flat screen TV while I'm drawing. And then we print it out 4x6, and their backstage badge winds up being their caricature.
Wow, yeah. What has been your most favorite wrestling company you got to wrestle for?
A WCW without question. I loved it. I felt like part of the family in WCW. Maybe I'm nostalgic for it because that's where my roots are. But I always thought that the people with WCW were top notch from top to bottom. I felt like the environment was positive, at least for me. I felt well treated, and it just suited me so well, man. I loved it. Loved everything about it.
Yep. Would you rather join DX, NWO, APA, or BWO?
Oh, put me in DX. I think I'd be more suited for DX, just my character and everything else. And plus, Road Dogg and I are pretty close, so I'd have fun with him.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, you would fit really well in DX. Definitely with the hat that you wear with the ponytail. It was kind of reminds me of how Road Dogg had the hat with the ponytail coming out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm. Would you rather join the Four Horsemen or Evolution?
Oh, Four Horsemen all day long. Four Horsemen. I grew up with the Four Horsemen, man. It'd be hard to beat the prestige of being a part of the most elite faction in pro wrestling history.
Yep. If you could have any band or singer perform your theme song, who would you want that to be?
Oh, that's a good question. Any band or singer? I'm going to say Metallica.
Mm, yeah. And for your GCW return, did you have your same theme song as you did way back in the day?
I did some modifications, man, because I didn't know where this thing was going to go. So a few changes that I made, if people go back and they watch that GCW, I did a remix, for lack of a better way of putting it, of my old theme song and added a few things to it and it's kind of juiced it up a little bit. So it's similar to my old theme song, not quite the same. And then I also had new tights made and new ring gear made. And many fans that might have watched me back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they perhaps remember the double L logo I had that was like a circle and an L going one direction and an L going the other. For my GCW debut, I modified that slightly. I still went with the double L logo, but my double L was made out of a fleur de lis. And a fleur de lis is that design that you see out of New Orleans and out of Cajun culture. And I used that and kind of hit a couple of L's in that. L going one way and L going the other. So I tried to update that look slightly.
Yeah. Are you the type of guy that like keeps his gear, or do you like get rid of it and auction it off and like
A little bit of both. And what I mean by that is I'm not the type of guy that keeps a lot of trophies. I don't hang stuff on my wall. I don't have championship belts laying around where I show them off to people. I don't have a lot of memorabilia. I'm not a memorabilia guy. My memorabilia, the things that I've been able to provide my family with because of my wrestling career, I consider those the things I really hold on to. As far as my tights go, though, I do have a few things that are sentimentally valuable to me, and I'll hold on to them because of that. But I only have to have a couple of things, for that to be the case. I have sold some tights in the past. I don't do it very often. So I've done a little bit of a mixture of both, but when I do hold on to something, I'm not framing it and hanging it up in a trophy room. I'm boxing it up and just saving it for myself.
Yeah. What would you say is a least favorite wrestling move to have happened to you?
I'm to have happened to me in that match with Joey Janela. As a matter of fact, he gave me a brain buster outside the ring. That was not comfortable at all. That one did not go well. So that would probably be at top of the list of my least favorite.
Yeah. And he's known as like a hardcore kind of deathmatch guy wrestler too. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah. He plays a little fast and loose, but he gets results.
yep. What would you say has been the hardest move you personally have tried to do to an opponent?
Probably the first time I ever tried a hurricane run off the top rope, and I don't mean what you see now very often, which is where you set a guy on the top rope and then do a hurricane rana and throw him off the rope. What I'm referring to is the flying one that Rey Mysterio would do, where he jumps from the top rope, lands on the guy's shoulders, and swings through. Oftentimes, I'm capable of doing it athletically, but I'm a bigger guy. So I'm legitimately, 5'11", 235 pounds. So for people to catch me and still be able to perform the move is not always easy for them. And sometimes I can get dropped on my head because of it.
Yeah. What usually got you or gets you hyped for a match that you are going to be in?
The people, the energy of the crowd. Man, when you peek through that curtain and you can feel thousands of people out there, just a collective buzz that's generated by them being excited. Man, that has a way of just coming like a shockwave into the locker room, and you can feel it, man. You feel it like a vibration in your chest, and you're ready to go out there and just do it.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that crowd for GCW, like I think you mentioned a little bit earlier, you said that they were chanting. They probably were definitely so excited to see you. And what was your reaction to the crowd there?
It felt like they were, man, and it was so awesome, and it made the experience for me. And the reason why I say it made the experience for me, but when you're a young guy in professional wrestling and you're just getting your break for the first time, like I was in WCW, you are so focused on not messing things up, and you're so tunnel vision on getting in the ring and making sure that you don't miss any spots, that your timing is right, that you do this correctly, that you do that correctly, and you're overthinking everything to the point that one of the hardest things to do is to still remember that you're performing in front of a live crowd and making sure that you engage with that crowd. And what was awesome about that GCW match was I felt no pressure. Dude, I didn't need a job, so I'm not out there hoping that they hire me that next night. If they do, great. If they don't, I'm going to come back home and I'm going to draw funny pictures and I'm going to get paid well for it. So there was no pressure. And because there was no pressure, I just got to go out there and have fun. And when I felt the fans interacting with me, I was able to interact with the fans and really live in the moment in a way that I never did when I was in WCW. WCW, a lot of my matches felt like a blur. Even to this day, I'll have fans or friends that will send me a clip of an old match and go, "Oh man, I never saw this match," and I'll watch this match and I'll go, "Man, I don't remember even having that match." And it's just because so
Yeah.
much of it felt like a blur, especially when you're on the road that often and wrestling so much. GCW was a unique experience because I was able to kind of go out there and interact with the fans, live in the moment, enjoy every second, and not take any of it for granted.
Yep. And about the difference between like the WWE, WCW, and the indies promotions is that you can interact more with the fans on the indie promotions than you can with the bigger promotions because that was like televised, and this is something just that you're doing
Yeah,
for
that's
not like
correct. And
TV.
that's correct. That's also the value of the house shows, the non-televised shows that WCW and WWE used to do a lot of. Those were great training areas for young guys that are coming in because you can try more crowd interaction and you can slow down your matches and actually think about what you're doing instead of having to go 100 miles an hour in order to fit it all into a specific time slot.
Yeah. What was your favorite thing to do after all your matches?
Go to Waffle House and then go back to the room.
What would you say has been your favorite venue you got to wrestle at in your career?
The MGM Grand in Las Vegas.
Did you ever get to wrestle in the Madison Square Garden during your career?
I did not. Back in WCW and during that era there where we were having the Monday Night Wars and we're going head to head with WWE, Madison Square Garden was exclusive to WWE. So WCW did not get the opportunity to ever run there. So if we were up in that neck of the woods, we were always wrestling at Nassau Coliseum or someplace like that. And so I never had an opportunity to wrestle in Madison Square Garden. Wish I had. I did get to wrestle in the Cow Palace. That was cool.
Yeah. Have you ever wrestled or done anything in Wisconsin before?
I have, man, but it's been so many years ago. I wouldn't be able to tell you the dates and I wouldn't be able to tell you the venue. But we used to do like Madison, Wisconsin a lot. And we did Green Bay and we did some other spots. So,
Yeah, I'm 45 minutes away from Green Bay.
okay. Yeah. So I'll tell you this. This is what's funny to me, and maybe you'll appreciate this. I can remember driving from places like Wisconsin to like North Dakota and things like that, and there's not much in between there except some dairy farms and stuff like that. And people used to give me a hard time because the stigma of being from Alabama, which is where I live and where I grew up, they think, man, there must be nothing in Alabama. It's so rural and there's nothing. Man, I'll make those long drives up there north and I'll go, dude, this is out in the middle of nowhere. I'm not from out in the middle of nowhere. This is out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Has there been any time you have accidentally broken out of your wrestling persona?
You mean just me just randomly becoming my wrestling persona? I haven't done it accidentally. I've done it in certain instances where I think that it'd be funny just to turn it on all of a sudden. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten like embarrassed in a wrestling match due to a mistake or anything?
Yes, absolutely. There's a match where we're in the MIA, and this is kind of funny because we would do this move where the three of us, Hugh would run and splash the guy in the turnbuckle and then drop down on all fours. And then Chavo would run and jump off of Hugh's back and splash the guy like a cross body. And then I would come in after Chavo and I'd do the exact same thing, jump off of Hugh's back and splash him. And I went to step on Hugh's back and I slipped and I fell. And I came up between the guy's legs and I got my hair pulled up in that ponytail. And it just looks like I'm shooting right up between him like that. It was ridiculous. You just keep going and hope nobody sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that. Mistakes are going to happen.
Yeah, nobody knows that it was supposed to happen. I mean,
yeah.
You could have just you could just say it was supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were going for.
Yep. What has been the scariest / most dangerous incident in your wrestling career?
Oh man, the scariest most would be the thing I did not do. And what I mean by that is when Mick Foley was thrown off of the top of the Hell in the Cell and took that huge bump on the outside, that became the thing everybody was talking about in professional wrestling for a while. And I can remember we did a pay-per-view not long after that. We had a 3-tiered steel cage, and we were having a match that night the Misfits in Action were, and they grabbed me and they go, "What do you think about coming off the top of the cage through a table?" And I said, "Well, let's go take a look at it, because it's a 16-foot tall cage." And in my mind, I'm going, 16 feet is not that high. I can come off 16. Well, then we get out there, and I realize, okay, the ring apron is 4 feet off the ground. So you're going to add 4 feet to the 16 feet that is the steel cage. Now you're at 20 feet. And then if you get on top of the steel cage and you look over the edge where your eyeballs are, you're talking about almost 26 feet now. So I go, yeah, you guys don't pay me enough to do this. I'm not going to put my body in that kind of risk. So.
Yeah. So you basically had like a storyline where you were told to possibly do something like Mankind did to Shane O'Mac.
Yeah, what they wanted us to do is they just wanted us to they wanted me to take a bump. I think it was a table match, actually, that the first person to go through the table loses. And they wanted me to be thrown off the top of the cage through the table. And I'm thinking, man, I'm not making the kind of money Mankind's making to be taking that bump.
Yeah. And he had more like hardcore experience in the ring.
Sure,
so
sure. Well, I'll be honest with you. If I would have gotten for that match what I'm sure Mick got for Hell in the Cell, I'd been willing to take the bump. I would have taken it, but I wasn't going to take it for what I was getting paid at the time.
Yeah. Or you could have just told one of the other guys to do it.
Yeah, there you go.
What has been the worst you've gotten injured in a match?
It actually didn't happen in a match, but I had my front teeth knocked out doing a video game. So that was a tough injury.
During like a WWE video game, like doing like the move sets for it?
Yeah, they wanted me to, the very first time that EA Sports ever did a video game for wrestling where they used motion capture, I was the guy wearing the motion capture suit. And the last day we were there, the last day that we were there, they wanted me to do some things with microphones attached to me so that it would make a lot of noise. And again, it was one of those things where they wanted me to come off the top rope to the outside through a table. And I said, sure, I can do that, no problem. What I didn't know was they put a lot of props under the table in order to make it really loud. And when I came off the top rope, broke through the table, my face hit a car door, and it broke my front teeth. It didn't put a mark anywhere on my face other than it broke my teeth up to the gum line. So they had to rush me to a dentist, have the dentist try to fix my teeth. Here's a funny story that goes along with that, Blake, is she's fixing my teeth and she's bonding them up. She worked on them for like 3 hours. We're in Canada. And I'm going, oh, man, is she ever going to get done? She gets done. She hands me a mirror, and my teeth look terrible. They look all jacked up and snaggle-toothed, and one shorter than the other. Well, dude, this is not what my teeth look like. And in her defense, she said, yeah, I've never seen you before, and I don't know what your teeth look like before, and I can only go with the space that I've got there to work with to try to make them right. Unless you've got a photo or something. Well, dude, this is like 1997, 98. Nobody had smartphones they're carrying around with 100 selfies on them. And nobody had their driver's license where you're smiling in your driver's license or anything like that. So I sat there for about 30 minutes getting madder and madder and madder. And I finally said, oh, hey, bring me a piece of paper and a pencil. And she did that, and I drew what my teeth looked like. And she went by the drawing to fix them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
What would you say has been the worst pain you have caused onto an opponent before?
You know what? I can honestly say, without reservation, I've never hurt anybody in a wrestling match. I've never caused anybody real legitimate pain in a wrestling match. Now, when I was an amateur wrestler, I broke a guy's arm in practice once in high school. So that's the only time. But we were wrestling for real at that point. So.
Yeah. I was an amateur wrestling in 5th grade, and somebody didn't break my leg, but like it hurt. So like he kind of injured my leg.
Yeah. So do you remember a move in amateur wrestling called the Wizard, where you wrap your arm around the guy's arm and you kind of put your shoulder into him to take him down? I did that. Okay. I did that move, and when I did that move, my forearm went right through the guy's bone and just broke it in half.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. It felt really weird, man. His whole arm felt like rubber.
And I'm guessing he had to go to like the ER or something.
Yeah, he had to have surgery and they had to put a couple of pins in his arms. The funny story on that is that I got through doing it and I felt so bad afterwards. He was the heavyweight and I was a 189 guy. And so I went to the hospital to check on him and I went to visit him. I'm only like 15, 16 years old at the time. And when I'm leaving, I got stuck in the elevator with his family. And he had a little niece that was like 6 years old. And she goes, "Are you the guy that broke my uncle's arm?" And I go, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm afraid so." She goes, "When he gets out of the hospital, he's going to beat you up," which to this day I thought was so funny. I was chastised by a little kid.
Yeah. Did he ever get back on you?
No, he quit. He quit. He quit wrestling after that, and which the broken arm kind of put him out for the season, so he just stopped participating. It was his senior year, and he wanted to do something besides be in the band.
Yeah.
He went out for wrestling.
If back in the day during like your WCW era, you got told you couldn't medically wrestle for the rest of your life, what would you do?
I'd draw caricatures. Thank goodness I've had something I can fall back on. So I've got the drawing thing that I can always do.
Yep.
Which is, by the way, is something I take great pride in now. Is again, I was telling someone this last week that I don't care how hard you work. I don't care how physical you are. You can be like Billy Gunn, who looks better than most people half his age, and he's so athletic at his age. But at some point, Father Time catches up with you, right? And you've only got a ceiling that you can get to. And then beyond that, you can't work hard enough to not age. You just can't. It's going to happen to everybody, and you're going to get to some point where you physically can't do that anymore. Well, the great thing about what I do now is, barring some unforeseen accident or catastrophe where my hand falls off, I can draw until I get so old that I can't move around anymore.
Yep. What is the longest you have had to stay out of action for wrestling?
I never did until I retired. Until I retired, I never had any injuries. Probably the longest I stayed out was towards the end of WCW. They took me off TV for about 4 weeks. They're going to revamp my character and bring me back out. And then WCW got sold in the meantime. So that didn't work out. But that's probably the longest layoff that I had.
Yeah. Do you feel like you are worthy enough to be part of like a wrestling Hall of Fame, like an indie Hall of Fame or any type of sorts?
I think it all depends on, it's all relative to where you are, right? Like a couple ago, they had a WCW Power Plant Hall of Fame that they placed me in, which I took great pride in. And I was happy that they asked me about that, the elite among the students that came out of there. So it was a WCW Hall of Fame from that standpoint. And I appreciated that. I've been in the Alabama Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I was inducted into that the same night that they inducted Sherry Martel, Wildfire Tommy Rich, and Jake the Snake Roberts. So I thought that I was, in some great company for that. But I think, wrestling Hall of Fames are all relative. It all depends on who's doing the voting, how long you were with a particular company, what measure of success you had or you didn't have. I think they're wonderful and they're great affirming things for a career that's been well done. But I don't know how much stock you could put into them.
Yeah. Who are 5 wrestlers you would put into the WWE Hall of Fame that are not in there yet that you think deserve it?
That are not in there yet. Okay, here's where I may show some of my ignorance, only because if I mention people that are already in there, you'll have to forgive me and then change that over. But I would say, is Macho Man in there yet? Have they ever put him in there? The Macho Man certainly needs to be in there if they haven't put him in there yet. I think.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, I don't think so either. Lex Luger, has Lex Luger been put in there? I
No,
think
but
Luger did.
he got
Yeah.
predicted to go into the Hall of Fame this year, but yes, Thunderbolt Patterson took his spot.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I would put Arn Anderson in there by himself before I put Thunderbolt Patterson in there. I like Thunderbolt, but Lex Luger should definitely be in there. Sting should definitely be in there. Um, and then you've got so I've mentioned Lex Luger, I've mentioned Sting, the Macho Man, and I'm trying to think of other people who may not be in there yet. Is Greg Valentine in there?
Yeah, I think so with Honky Tonk.
Okay, okay, all right. Um, who else? Who else? There's been so many great, talented guys. Is King Kong Bundy in there? I
No.
would put Bundy in there. I'd put Bundy in there, and I'd put Kamala in there. How about that? Kamala, the Ugandan giant.
Yeah. And Sting is in the Hall of Fame too.
Oh, he is in there already. Okay, I thought that maybe they had
Yeah.
waited on. Okay, we'll replace Sting. Then is the Big Show in there yet?
No.
Big Show for sure.
Yeah. What are 4 words you would describe your wrestling persona?
Obnoxious, funny, entertaining, high flying, hard working.
Yeah. What would you say are 3 things that annoy you the most in wrestling?
Not selling, uh, doing high spots for the sake of getting a reaction from fans as opposed to making it make sense in the match, and kicking out of moves that should be finishes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. Yeah. What are 3 things that you most definitely like about wrestling?
Now or just in general?
Just in general.
Just in general. I love that it's an instant feedback from the wrestling fans, right? You know whether something's good or something's bad because the wrestling fans are right there to let you know right away. So I love that about wrestling. I love the freedom that comes with being able to create in the moment. Like sometimes even the flip side of what I just described is as a wrestler, you don't know what works or doesn't work until you put it out there. And so in the moment, you have to think on your feet and be witty and be smart and be clever and come up with good things in the moment. And then the other thing that I would say that I really like about wrestling too is the drama that you can create based on how you do things in a match, not just what you do in the match, not just the moves, but where did you place those moves and how did you do them?
Yeah. If you are upset during or before a match, what do you do to help yourself calm down?
Breathe. Just breathe. Get by yourself and breathe.
Yeah. And I'm guessing for you, your artwork, did that help you calm down to do like that in your meantime as well?
Well, here's the thing about it is one of the things I take pride in myself is I'm not a very overly emotional person. I usually do a pretty good job of controlling my emotions in bad situations. I've lived enough life to be able to do that. So generally, that's not an issue with me as far as needing to quote calm myself down. But with that being said, my artwork's definitely something that's extremely relaxing for me. I like to work out with weights and things like that, and I like to draw are my 2 favorite ways of just unwinding.
Yeah. If you could wrestle anywhere in the world, where would that be?
Japan. Of all the things
Yeah.
I've done in my wrestling career, I've never had an opportunity to wrestle in Japan. I would
Yeah,
love
that's
the
a lot
opportunity.
of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I would love that opportunity. I never had the opportunity to wrestle there. Would love to get to wrestle in Japan.
Yeah, that would be great because that's a lot of wrestlers' dream place to wrestle. So yeah.
Yep.
What has been the best fan art you've received in your wrestling career?
It wasn't even me. It was done to for me to see what they could do. But if for those people that may follow him on social media, Hal Haney is an artist who does a lot of wrestling related art. And when I was wrestling for WCW, and I think he was still in high school at the time, he sent me this drawing he had done of Crowbar and just told me that he thought that my cartoons in the wrestling magazines really inspired him and encouraged him. And I took that so personally in a great way. And it was so flattering to me that I took that drawing to Crowbar to one of the shows and had him sign it and autograph it. And then I mailed it back to Hal so that he would have it. And to this day, Hal and I have become friends and have remained connected to each other simply because he's never forgotten that gesture I did for him. And I've never forgotten how awesome it feels to be put in a position where you can have a positive influence and impact on somebody. Man, so few people can say that in this world. And I always try to carry myself in a way that if I do have any influence in anyone, I want it to be in a positive way.
Yeah, most definitely.
Bobby Eaton used to say to me, Blake, he'd say, now, Lash, it don't cost you a dime to be nice to people, not a dime. And he was absolutely right, man. So it don't cost anything, and you get so much in return.
Yeah. What is one top unforgettable moment of you in your wrestling career?
Winning the tag team titles with Chavo in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah. And how long was that ring? Because I think I seen that it was like 1 day, but I could be wrong.
Like 30 seconds.
Oh.
Like 30 seconds. We didn't even get out of the ring with the belts, but it was still cool.
I mean, yeah, just getting to win the tag team titles, any title
It,
is a big
that was
thing.
cool. And another experience I would put up there would be my first pay per view, which was against Disco Inferno at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas on Halloween Havoc. So that was fun too.
Yeah. I could see Disco being a good member in Misfits in Action.
Yeah, Disco was a great guy. I know he gets a lot of flack now on social media and that sort of thing, but Disco had a great mind for the wrestling business. He knew exactly what he could do and how to get a match over. I always thought he was a top tier talent, a great look, great character, great chemistry. Everything was good about Disco, in my opinion, in his WCW run.
Yep. Were you the type of wrestler that ate like certain meals before your matches or didn't eat anything?
No, I wouldn't eat a whole lot. I liked wrestling on an empty stomach, but I was not back then. I was not near as conscious of my nutrition as I am now, and I have to stay on top of my nutrition now, or I get big fast.
Yeah. What is your favorite current and old wrestler's theme song from WWE or AEW?
Oh, I'm a real American. The Hulk Hogan theme song from the '80s. I'm all over that. I got that one. Now, current one, I don't know enough of them. I'll tell you what, I'll scratch that. I'm not sure what the name of the song is, but Jericho's song that he came out to that the fans were singing along with him with, that's a cool thing, man. When you get the crowd to participate like that, that's awesome. So I love that just because you can kind of feel it in the moment. There's a few times when certain things will happen in the wrestling business that you can almost feel the moment come through the TV and you can feel it as if you're part of the crowd. And I always thought that that came off really good across television.
Yeah. The song is called Judas and it's actually by Chris Jericho because of his band.
Right. I knew it was by him, but that's exactly it. That's awesome. That would be the
Yeah.
current.
Yeah. What is your least favorite theme song? from wrestling history?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I've got an answer for that one.
Yeah,
I can't. I can't think of a bad one off the top of my head.
yeah. Also, just a random mention. I think you and Gilbert would have had a good match in like WCW or something.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. That'd been awesome.
Yeah. Was he there during your time in WCW?
No, I don't think so.
If you could go back and revisit any year of your wrestling career, what year would that be and why?
1999. That's when it all kind of took off for me and everything came together.
Yeah. And if you could go back in time and tell your younger self something then that you from now, what would you tell your younger self?
Learn the wrestling business, not just how to wrestle. I learned how to wrestle and how to have good matches inside the ring, which is extremely important. That's the bread and butter of it all. That's what it's predicated on. However, if you don't learn the wrestling business, then you don't learn how to promote yourself in such a way that if one opportunity, the door is shut on it, then you can find a way to open the door to other opportunities.
Yeah. If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Oh, a warning label. Let's see. Pack a lunch, because this is going to take you a while.
Yeah. What are some things you would still be interested in striving to achieve in wrestling that you have not achieved yet?
Yeah, I would love that opportunity to come back and make one more run if it happened for me. I would like to have a meaningful run in WWE, not just be able to simply say I was under contract and work for the company, but to actually be a relevant wrestler for them. And then have the opportunity to wrestle some of the guys that I didn't get an opportunity to have feuds with or have meaningful matches with. There's a couple of guys like AJ Styles is someone I greatly admire. I had a couple of matches with him in WCW. I think I had a dark match with him as they were looking to him to hire him back then. But I would love to wrestle him now at the level he is now. You're only as good as the opponent you're in there in the ring with. So if you wrestle the best, then you'll become one of the best, or you won't be in that spot very long.
Yeah. Have you ever got like a call from the WWE since your departure and to like come back, or do you keep in
Yeah,
contact with any of the wrestlers?
yeah, I've gotten a few. How should I put this? Informal reaches. Where they'll reach out to you and they'll have kind of the way that sort of thing generally goes is this: they like to fill you out. And so you'll have a conversation with someone that you have a previous relationship with that it can kind of be masked as a uh, as just a friendly catching up on old times type of conversation, but they're really filling you out to see where your head's at, see what the opportunities are, and whether or not they're interested. And if a wrestling company is interested and they say they're interested, then that means that they could sign you next week, or they could sign you 10 months from now when something specific comes along, or you may never hear from them again. That's just the nature of the wrestling business. And you have to realize that's par for the course.
Yeah. Because honestly, I'd like to see you in the WWE for like a possible return Royal Rumble or like a Legends Night or something of that sorts.
I appreciate it. I would love to be a part of something like that. And I also wouldn't mind doing other things in the wrestling business. I think I have a mind for the creative side of things. I think I could do play by play. I think I could do backstage interviews, anything like that. And I'd be open to any position in professional wrestling.
Yeah. If you could make an entrance, if you're back in the WCW, your persona back then, if you could make an entrance with any animal, what animal would that be?
An animal. Here's what we would do. We would do an interest where I would have a float take me out to the ring like a Mardi Gras style float with wrestling ropes around it and everything else, similar to they've used in WrestleMania a few times, right? Let that take you there. You can throw out Mardi Gras beads in the process and maybe have some alligators there on the float with me. How about that? That's got a nice little Cajun
Okay.
vibe.
Yeah. What is your favorite wrestling quote?
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. There you go. And then the rest from there.
Yeah. If you could come up with your own quote, or if you already have one, would that be, or what is it?
Oh, it's laissez le bon temps rouler. Let the good times roll.
Yeah. And is that French?
Yeah, man, that's Cajun. They'll shout that at Mardi Gras all the time. If you go down to New Orleans, around, and if you're ever a part of Mardi Gras, you'll see it on T-shirts. You'll see it everywhere down there. So I used it a lot when I wrestled, and in fact, I had a cool experience where I got to cut a promo on live TV when we were wrestling in New Orleans back then, and I did the old "Laissez le bon temps rouler," and all the fans were saying it with me, man, and that was a cool moment. Felt awesome because they know it so well there. It's second nature.
Yeah. Would you ever forgive your opponent if they injured you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Man, well, it depends on whether or not it's malicious, but as I'm assuming it's accidental, and if it's accidental, then yeah, man, accidents happen. And I've had injuries in matches. I've also had injuries in matches where I forgive them, but I still get the receipt in.
Yeah. If you could manage any wrestler right now, who would you want to manage?
Oh, that's pretty good. Let's see. Who would I want to manage? Hmm. Hmm. Let me think. Samoa Joe.
Hmm.
For no particular
Interesting. Yeah.
reason. It just popped in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be good. Yeah. If back in the day, if you could choose anyone to manage you, other than kind of Tylene Buck kind of managed the MIA, who would you want that to be?
Jimmy Hart.
Hmm.
Yeah. Jimmy was awesome. Great energy.
That would have been actually really good in for the MIA.
Yeah.
How did you come up with your wrestling name?
Well, Lash LeRoux was an old cowboy in the early 30s, and so a lot of people remembered the name, and there's some name value in it. So I kind of leaned into the fact that people would recognize that name. My last name is spelled different than his, so it makes it unique and different from that standpoint. And because it was Cajun, my name was Cajun, that's unique and different, but also a culture that people kind of like to embrace and wrap their arms around. They love the idea of it. And I feel like there's a lot that you could do with it. So that's kind of how I came up with it. And then what really solidified it was when I was 18, 19 years old and WCW put a microphone in front of my face for the first time. I had an old country accent because I was from Alabama and I sounded like I was from Alabama. And I was about like, they're like, look, you can't talk like that on TV because Southern is considered ignorant on TV. And I said, okay, so I've got to try to figure out a way to hide that. Well, I couldn't hide my Southern accent, but I could amplify it with a Cajun accent. I could be the Raging Cajun, Lash LeRoux. And they go, that's perfect. Cajun's a character, but Southern is ignorant. So that's what worked out for me.
Yeah. If there is anything you would change about your wrestling style, what would that be?
Just to be more intense when it's time to turn it on and really get your offense in. I would want to be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah. If you could dump any type of food and beverage on your opponent, what food and beverage would that be?
Oh man, I don't know. I really don't know on that one. I will say this: I did that once in a promo when let's see, Disco and I were wrestling the Mamalukes in WCW. We had a segment once where we had them chained up and handcuffed in a hotel room, and then we went in and poured spaghetti sauce all over them. So I think that counts.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
because they're Italian.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So this was like kind of like something, so like a storyline. You went into like their hotel room and
yeah, so the
dumped it
storyline
on them.
was they were chasing Disco around because they were had mafia ties, and Disco supposedly had gambling debts that they were trying to recover, and I was helping Disco out and tagging up with him and trying to give him have his back a little bit there, and so we set them up where they were led into a hotel room on false pretenses, had the ladies kind of handcuffed them to the bedpost, and then after they couldn't move, we got in there and got their spaghetti and their pasta and poured it all over them to
Ah,
humiliate them.
okay.
That was the storyline.
If you were, so say back in the day, you got injured, either a minor or a major injury, and you got a one in a lifetime call asking if you could work for WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan, any company. And I could say this is now in your career, I guess, because these companies are now. Would you take up that one in a lifetime offer?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I would take them up. Absolutely.
Would you rather wrestle Scott Steiner or Rick Steiner? Or both in like a
Both. I've wrestled them
2-on-1?
both and enjoyed wrestling both, man. I had an awesome time wrestling both of them. I got along with those guys
Yep.
great. In fact, Rick Steiner was my last WCW match I ever had.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What would you say has been the worst weapon you've got beat/hit with in a match?
Um, Ladders. I think ladders are extremely unpredictable. You know, you can hit them on one end and seesaw them up, and depending on the leverage and where they're sitting, they can hit you in weird, awkward angles, and you can't always protect yourself or predict where they're coming from.
Yeah. And they could probably pinch you because you probably don't know what they have.
Yeah, they're just very, very unpredictable. Same thing with you set them up inside the ring. A lot of people don't realize this as well. The taller the ladder is, the more unstable it is, and you set that inside of a ring. Well, a ring is not a completely hard surface. So there's enough give in the ring there that it makes the ladder even more unstable, and it doesn't sit level always. So it's easy for that thing to get knocked over and for you to fall off of it. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with a ladder.
Yeah. Who would you put in your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers?
Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, uh, Roddy Piper, and who else would I put up there? I'll go ahead and say Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Who would you consider as like a brother and sister in wrestling?
Brothers in wrestling. I don't really have any sisters in wrestling. I think still around, but brothers in wrestling, definitely Chavo, definitely Hugh Morris, and definitely anybody with the last name Armstrong.
Yeah.
And Dr. Tom Pritchard.
Mm-hmm.
And also Alan Funk, who was Kwee in WCW,
Oh yeah.
and Mike Sanders. We kind of came through the power plant together, so we've always been extremely close because of that.
Yeah. If you had one official, like an official retirement match, who would you want that to be against?
I think Rey Mysterio Jr. I think we always made magic together. We always did some unique stuff. We had great chemistry. He's still at the top of his game. I think we'd have a wonderful, exciting, impactful match. Yeah, I would definitely say that.
Yeah. If you could wrestle or have a segment with any actor, who would that be?
Actor. Bradley Cooper. How about that? We'll say Bradley Cooper. Or
Okay.
who's the guy that played? I can't think of his name. Um, I'll just go Bradley Cooper. Can't think of the other one.
Yeah. When you were growing up, were you like more of like a shy, quiet kid, or outgoing, loud, and excited?
No, I was very obnoxious and hyper all the time. I'm a high energy guy.
Yeah.
In fact, it's
Out of
all that I
all.
can do to sit still for 2 hours for an interview. It's hard for me
Oh
not to
wow.
get up and move around.
Yeah. Out of all the companies you have wrestled for, which one has been your like most favorite? If I didn't ask this one already, I
Yeah, I
think I
think we
might have
covered
asked
that
this one.
already. WCW without a question. WCW for sure.
Yeah. Out of the out of your both personas, which one was your most favorite to do?
Oh, definitely the Raging Cajun, Lash LeRoux. I mean, that's just me being me. And I think any time you want to do a character that's going to be successful, it has to be just an amplification of who you are naturally, or otherwise it's not gonna come off as being authentic.
Yeah. What was your reaction to getting asked or getting you put yourself into the you basically went to the WCW, you said. So what was your reaction to getting into the WCW, into officially being part of it?
Well, a lot of people don't realize that that sort of thing is a slow boil. So it's not like you go and you ask, "Hey, man, will you hire me?" and then you find out in 3 days whether or not they're going to offer you a contract. It is a lot of hard work. It was a lot of driving back and forth from Alabama to Atlanta 5 days a week, 10 hours a day of training at the power plant. It was months and months of that. Then it was months and months of having just nightly matches where they have me on a few shows here and there, but they're only paying me per appearance. To then one day you just wake up and they've sent you a contract and then you're off to the races. So there's an evolution that takes place that you really can't encapsulate into one moment.
Yeah. What is one top memory or match of yours that you will never forget from WCW?
There's three of them that were extremely magical for me, and then one was my Nitro debut against Billy Kidman in Minneapolis. Then my pay per view that I've mentioned before already was against Disco Inferno in Las Vegas, and then winning the tag team titles that we covered as well with Chavo in Australia.
Yeah. Who was one wrestler from WCW that was in there with when you were that you never got to get in the ring with that you wished you could have?
Probably Brad Armstrong. I think we kind of mentioned that, but probably Brad Armstrong.
Mm-hmm. How did the wrestlers and workers treat you at EC or WCW? Sorry.
No, it's fun. Wonderfully, man. They were always awesome to me, and I think a lot of that has to do with it. Life is like this in general. If you treat people courteously and with respect, more often than not, they're going to treat you courteously and with respect. And most of the guys that find themselves in a bad way, whether it's hazing or being put in their place or that sort of thing, or any kind of backstage friction, usually comes because you're probably acting a little more arrogant than you should, and you're probably being disrespectful to some other people.
Yeah. And then I know we mentioned this earlier too, but to get more of it, how did it feel when you won the WCW tag team titles with LT Loco Chavo? And how did what was your reaction to like getting told you were going to be only winning it for like 20 seconds?
It was fine. It was great affirmation of what we think is a lot of incredible hard work. I mean, the two of us put a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of miles into the tag team that we were and into what we did in WCW. And so when they give you that kind of an opportunity, no matter how long it's going to last for, you at least feel that affirmation that they recognize that you're one of the elite teams. So that's always incredibly awesome.
Yeah. Who would you say was the most quietest and then outgoing member of MIA backstage?
Oh, definitely the Wall. Definitely Jerry. AWOL. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely Sergeant AWOL. Jerry, too. He was extremely quiet, but everybody loved him because when you got around him, he loosened up a lot and he laughed a lot. He was just a big, gentle giant. We miss him. He's an awesome dude.
Yep. Who from MIA would you say you are the closest to this day?
Chavo and Hugh both go neck and neck on that one. I still speak to both of them pretty often and catch up when we can. And they've both have always been awesome to me and continue to be lifelong friends to this day.
Yeah. When was the last time there was like an MIA reunion? And if there was any option to have a reunion at like a convention or show of some sort, would you take up that offer to do a whole reunion with everybody that's still around?
Yeah, I would certainly take up the option if I was ever offered that opportunity to have a MIA reunion. But we've never had one, and one's never happened since we broke up in WCW.
Wow. Yeah, that would be great for you guys to reunite.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. I've even thought about maybe something to bring back to wrestling, and maybe an opportunity for AEW would be me and Chavo tagging together as just the Misfits to try to make it something slightly different, and then let Hugh come in and be our manager.
Yeah, that would be great too.
Yeah.
Do you still talk with Tylena? Or what was she like? And do you
Yeah, no,
did
I
you get
really
like
haven't ever.
along with her?
I haven't spoken to her since WCW. Really, I think maybe one or two passing conversations. But she's off doing her thing, and good on her for it. And I wish her all the best.
Yeah. So say now in your career, you got asked all at the same time by WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, TNA, NWA, and New Japan, all at the same time, but you can only obviously choose one to show up for a match or a return or like to do something. Which company would you choose?
I think WWE. They're still obviously the largest platform, and the it would do the most for solidifying a legacy in professional wrestling.
Yeah. Also, I
Well,
think
hey Blake, it's been about 2 hours, man. It's been over 2 hours now. We start taking this thing home if we can, my friend.
yeah, of course. I'll ask you two more
Yeah,
questions, all right?
yeah, you got it, man. What you got? Go
All
ahead and lay
right.
them on me.
So, what is one thing you would tell your wrestling fans?
How much I appreciate them. I know that we don't always do the best job of showing that appreciation and gratitude to fans, but it's not just the fact that the business wouldn't exist without the wrestling fans. It's also that the same level of emotion and drive and encouragement and motivation you have for going out there and putting on a great match wouldn't exist without the wrestling fans. The wrestling fans are the lifeblood of the industry itself. They're the energy. They're what make it all happen. You got to have talent, and you have to have, um, you know, ability, obviously, and you've got to have characters, and you got to have things that are interesting to put on a show, but at the end of the day, without the fans showing up and bringing that energy with them, there is no show.
Yeah. And then my last question for you, do you have any advice for me to become a wrestler?
If you're looking to become a wrestler, then I say this: you never stop dreaming, and you never let go of pushing yourself as hard as you can be and trying to strive and reach for the top. And I constantly ask people, what are you doing to go out of your way to try to make yourself noticeable and make yourself undeniable? Whether it's through social media platforms, which is an option now that you have afforded you that we didn't have back when I was starting trying to break in, or whether it's calling people, being persistent without being annoying. You want to constantly put yourself in front of people, not to the point that they get irritated that you won't leave them alone, but at the same time, not give them an opportunity to forget about you. And you'd be amazed. That sounds like simplistic wisdom, but you'd be amazed how many people I've come in contact with over my career that, they want to be a big wrestling star and they want WWE to hire them or AEW to hire them. And then when you ask them, what are you doing trying to make that happen? Well, they're just going out and trying to have a few matches here and a few matches there. Well, look, Tony Khan's not watching your independent show. And not because he's not interested or he thinks he's above it. He just doesn't have the time or the resources to sit down and try to be constantly picking out the next big star himself. Same way with WWE. You have to make a concerted effort to show them how bad you want the job and then make yourself undeniable so that they have to want you. Outside of that, you're not going to sit at home and then one day get that magical call from Tony Khan or from Triple H or from anybody else that just says, hey, brother, we saw your last match and you're so great, we can't wait to sign you. The wrestling business doesn't work like that. It just doesn't.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Absolutely. And hey, hone your craft. Put yourself in a position so that when you have an opportunity and that door opens, you're ready for it. That's one thing I can say about my run in WCW is I worked so hard that when they finally gave me a few matches that were key matches here and there, I knocked them out of the ballpark. I made sure I was prepared. I made sure I had the look that I needed to have, that I had the gimmick I needed to have, and I had the ring ability that I needed to have.
Yeah, most definitely. And thank you again. And I can't thank you enough for taking your time out to do this interview. It was a pleasure to have you on here.
It was my pleasure, Blake. Thank you so much, man, and good luck with everything. Keep the drip dripping.
Yeah, thank you. And if you could tell people where they could find you.
Absolutely. I'm on X at Lash Can Draw. And you can also email me personally, lashwcw at AOL.com. That is actually a legit email address I still have after all these years.
Great. Well, thanks again, and I hope you have a good rest of your night.
Hey, thanks a lot. You too, Blake. Have a good one, brother.
Yep. See ya.
Bye-bye.